Good morning, everybody, and thank you for attending today's webinar. We're just having a few people joining at the moment. While we're joining, I'll introduce myself. My name is Chris Ray, Channel Manager from EcoSoft, producers of Powerproject. And today's webinar, we'll be looking at some exciting new developments that we have in the 4D side of Powerproject. So before we actually start the webinar, if I just go through, hopefully everyone can see my screen. There is a Q&A box. You are all muted at this point, and so we won't be able to hear you, but there is a question section that you can fill in. And if you fill that in, that'll pop up on one of my other screens, and we can then try and either answer that as we go, or if at the end, and if we do miss out there, we'll follow you up on any questions that people ask. Also, this session is being recorded, so the link you have after it, you will receive an email from us with a link which you can rewatch the webinar, but you can also share with colleagues to watch that webinar as well. So that's all available. So you can share that with anyone you want. And that's usually about 2 to 3 hours after the session, after the webinar finishes. So say if you do have any questions, just pop them into the question and answer section of the GoToWebinar. You can also hide the GoToWebinar box with the orange and white arrow box near the top. Okay, so if we have a look at today's session, first of all, we're going to have a very brief recap on the 4D side and Powerproject side. I'm in here. We'll then look at some new features that we have that have now come out in Powerproject version 16.02, and then any next steps to go from that. So if we start a bit of a recap, first of all, Powerproject BIM is a bolt-on module for Powerproject. So if you already have Powerproject at the moment, it's just an additional module you can purchase to bolt on, and it then seamlessly fits inside Powerproject, allowing you to link the model to the Gantt chart. Now, we use IFC files as standard files to import for models, which most of the, I think all of the standard CAD packages can export IFC files, and we can bring those in and sit them alongside your Gantt chart, your project schedule inside there. You can then link activities to those elements in the model. There's about 3 easy ways to do that, and we'll talk about those briefly. And then you can also, once you've linked those, you can use those dates with live dates or baseline dates to run visualizations and do comparisons with that side of it. We also allow you to add site objects. You can split and merge model elements inside your model. So if it's not split for the number of pores for a slab, you can actually do that manually inside Powerproject. You're not changing the model, you're just changing it inside Powerproject from a planner's perspective. You can manage model revisions. We understand that you might get multiple revisions of a model as you go through the life of that bid, tender, live project. You can bring those in and manage those and keep your splits and so forth and links that you've already done. You can filter, print, export to a video or export to a library of images, like a flipbook we call it, to allow you to share that information and report that information to other people. As you monitor your progress, the advantage here is that with Powerproject BIM, your Gantt chart and bar chart is linked to your model at all times. So as you do your progress monitoring, you can then see and reflect how that progress has been impacting the simulation, and you can do comparisons with your baseline. And again, we've just had a new release with some exciting new features in there. Now, the other thing to talk about with Powerproject BIM is that it's been designed by us for our users, and our users, a community of planners and schedulers. It's been made so you don't need to have those CAD skills and so forth. So you're not, it's just inbuilt, easy to use within the system, and you'll see some of the new features that enhance that easy to use side things here. So again, what are the benefits if we look at 4D of having 4D, linking your 3D model to your project? Well, again, you can check the feasibility, identify any problems there. You can run different scenarios in your project, make a few changes, rerun that, have a baseline, compare how they change, how it changes. So if you have any variations on your project, you can Again, in our new feature, you have the ability to use the model to help create that schedule at the very beginning. You can animate the logistics on there, so your site objects, you can have them moving throughout the project. You can communicate work packages to particular groups and site procedures. You can capture, as you progress, you capture that as built information and visualize it. And again, it is not a case of having to resynchronize once you've done your updates of progress. It is every time you do your progress updates, your model is already linked. You can simulate and see how that impacts on your project and how it works. And again, if there's issues, you can communicate those in a 4D sense rather than just a Gantt chart view, which becomes very powerful. So that's a very quick recap on Powerproject BIM. And again, for more information, you can we have our partners and resellers over in Australia, Solid Support, who will be able to assist you with any questions. I say if you have Powerproject or looking for BIM, or you haven't got Powerproject, looking for Powerproject with BIM, they'll be able to assist on that side of it. So if we look at some of the headline features that we've actually put into version 16.2, and what we'll do is not just show slides, we'll actually show product here inside here. So the first one is, we've called it Project Builder, Schedule Builder in here. And what this allows you to do is this allows you to take a model and create a first pass project schedule, project plan from that model. Now, it does rely on how good the model is and what information is in that model, and we'll talk about that as we go through. But it allows you to take that project and quickly get up and running, or that model and get quickly up and running with 4D. Now, it may not be perfect, it may not be what you want, it may not be the right structure, but it does actually allow you to validate how good that model is and what information, so it gives you that sanity check at maybe the very early stages. If you have the information in there, then it actually gives you a better, it can create your first pass schedule, which is, we've got some customers that are seeing that can save 80% of the planning stage on their tender, in putting that. And it does the groundwork of putting the activities in. You still need to put links in and durations and so forth, and may group it together, but it starts that first point up there. So saying that, if I just open up Powerproject here, you'll see I've got Powerproject here. I've got a model in here. This is a hospital model. We actually have a structural and architectural model inside here. And if I select any of the items inside here, these are IFC files I've brought in, and you can see it gives us a number of properties, things like the entity in there, the location, the space and so forth in there. All of this information has been put in here that I can see, and you've got measurements and so forth. This has all been exported from the CAD package, whether it's AutoCAD, ArchiCAD, and so forth. Now, what I can do is I can use some of this information to generate a schedule. So if I just move this out here, and I just look at my schedule inside here, I can say, okay, if I'm going to go to add-ins and I'm going to run my schedule from IFC, which opens up on my screen. It selects, I have a group model because I have an architectural and structural model in here. I can then select in here, I can choose from any of those properties from any of the elements that are inside my model. So I can see all of these different elements that I've got available to me. And again, customers now are putting custom elements inside their models at the design stage to use for scheduling, estimating, and so forth. But I'm going to choose, I'm going to go with the site, I'm going to go with the location, and I'm going to go with the entity. Very simple there. And if I go next, it will then give me a sample of what structure it's going to build in here. So I can see I've got default in there as a structure, and then these items inside here, and I can see other items inside there. And if I'm happy with those, I can move them around if I'm not, and I could then create a schedule at this point. But we can do more than that. So I can now choose in here, I can choose any of those elements and those properties of that model to populate into a code library inside Powerproject. So if I had disciplines in here, so electrical, mechanical, whichever I want, I can have that populate into a code library on the model, on the activities, which I could then run filters. And I can put all those information in. So if I can do that. I can also choose to have user-defined fields inside Powerproject. So if I had those objects and I had maybe values or quantities that I wanted to come across, I could have them come across directly into my model and from my model into my tasks, which I could then do calculations on. So I can get it to automatically do those. So I'm just going to here click on create, and once I've created that, I'll just close this, and this has created me a first pass schedule of my project. So what I'm going to do is, I actually don't need that one there, just get rid of that. And inside this, and just for simplistic purposes, I'm just going to select all of these, and I'm just going to link these together in here. And if I just go to my link option, link tasks, and I'm going to recalculate the project to do a reschedule. And as that comes up there, click on OK. I can go back to here now. So I've got this in place, and if I go to my BIM controls, I can just go to settings and just going to, at this point, just confirm that I'm going to run it in 15 seconds, just very quickly in there. And so now all I do is I hit the play button, and as you can see, within a few minutes or less, I've created a very simple schedule to see how good and how I can link this together. Now, if I had the different properties for substructure, superstructure, foundations, and so forth tagged into my model, I could use those to work for me. If I had different phases or ranges, I could have those work as well. So it really quickly allows you to build a model and run that model in a simulation to see how well it fits in. So as I've done that, and then I also have the ability to say, well, which items didn't I see? So I can go to unscheduled. So these are things in here, and it could be that if I look in these walls and windows in here, actually they've come through from the model without any locations and any site. So that could be a problem, and I can actually feed that straight back to the design team, straight back to who provide the model, that this information is missing. So again, it allows me to sanity check at the very early stages at this point. So again, I'm just going to stop that on that point there. So again, I've created a schedule very quickly just by literally selecting the models, opening those up into Powerproject, and then running my schedule from IFC Builder to create a first pass schedule. I can base on this, could now work on this and so forth, and work on how I do what I needed to do. So let's go back here. If we look at some of the next features inside here, we have cutting planes. And again, all these features you see we add, these are features that have been direct from feedback from customers using Powerproject currently and using the Powerproject BIM and what they want more, what more items they want on here. So as you can see, I've just we've got cutting planes. So this allows you to slice through the model. So again, you may want to see once the facade's gone up, you may want to see behind that. When the wall's gone up, you may want to see behind that. You may want to slice the top of a model off. If it was a tunnel, you may want to see this through the tunnel. You can slice on that. And again, so it allows you to see what's happening with inside there. Now, to show you that, it's very easy just to show you. If I go back to Powerproject in here, and at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn my properties off. I'm just going to open up my cutting planes in here. So my cutting planes allows me to say, okay, well, if I want to put a cutting plane on this, I'm going to do it by object. So I click on new in there. Just all items in there, do new. And if I go in there and I click on an object inside there, you now get a little yellow arrow, which I can push through and cut through this model. And you can see I can do that. Now, if I want to, if I come out, you can see that's the box that it's actually got. It's moving around. If I want, I can slant that. So I can slant that forward or backwards in there. And if I did that, and I move, it now moves through at an angle. And inside there, that's one cutting plane. And if I apply that, I can give that a name. But I can create another one in there that I want to. And if I just, so I can turn that off or on in there, just go there, click on new. And again, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to click on the roof. So I can then go down here, and you can see I'm actually using two cutting planes at the moment. So I can cut from the top, the side, and again, if I wanted to, I can slant this if I wanted to. If I just move that and say slant, so I can move that sideways. So you can see now I can move that. So I can cut right back into each item. And I've actually got 2 cutting planes here, but if I wanted to, I can create as many cutting planes as I want, but I can also, I can show 6 at a time in there. Now the advantage here is with these cutting planes, when I've got them turned on, the relevant ones, I can actually create a snapshot and save a snapshot with cutting on there. And then, so even if I turn these off in here, so if I just apply that, if I turn these off, I can always go back to my snapshot, which has them turned on. So if I want to focus and look at a particular area, I can do that. And those snapshots I can jump to when I'm running a simulation. So I can actually sort of swap to those different snapshots as I go through. So I'm just going to take that off and return back to there. So again, you can have up to 6 of those displayed, but you can have as many of those as you want inside the model. So that's a quick way of looking at that. Now, other things that we can do with the model, and I'm just going to turn this off. I created a schedule from this item here, and I see those elements. Now, before we did this, and if we get to the very basics of this, I just removed all those tasks. If I had a simple schedule already in place, I can click and control select multiple activities and drag them onto that task, and it would assign those to those tasks. So if I did that, I did track selection, those items are on there. If I did tracking bar chart, I select that, it shows me it's allocated to those items there. So if I didn't want it to automate the creation, I could do that myself. If I looked here and I can see I've got my piles in underneath here, if I select one of those piles, I can right click on it, and then I can go down to select similar products by, and I could say object type, and that's selected all those objects in there. So I could then drag and drop all of those in one go in there. If I wanted to select everything on the same level as that wall, I could go down to search similar products by location, and that selected everything on that one item, on that one section there. So then I could drag all of that onto one task, which would be everything on level 2 or level 1, whichever I've selected. So again, it's a very powerful way to select in. And I also have, by using the shift key down, I can drag across my model to select groups of items. And depending the direction I drag in is what it does. This, if I drag from the bottom right up, it will select everything that's visible as long as I've highlighted the whole item. If I go from the bottom left up, it's if I touch it, it will select it. And if I go from top, it's whether it's visible or not, again, inside there. So it's very quick and easy to select multiple items and drag them across. Now, if I selected, let's just select those, and I wanted to assign those to a project, but I don't want to assign them to one task. I want a task for every pile in there. I can just control drag that across to a blank space, and before I let go, just press the shift key down, and it's now created a task for every pile in there. And if I select those, you'll sort of see them. Oops. If I select those there, you'll see them highlight. I can do that. If I didn't want to do that, if I said, let me just remove that, and I might say east piles in there, just create a task. And again, if I select, let's just create a selection here. So, and I highlight those. Now, if I control drag those to an existing line and hold the shift key down, it now will create a single task on the same line for every one of those piles. I can always look at those inside in there. So I can select those, still all of those, and I can run that as I want. So again, there's multiple ways that I can do this, multiple ways I can use it, and everything's been put in there based on feedback and based on make it as quick and easy for a planner to link up the model with the project. I'll just undo that. Undo that back to, just in case I need to. We'll get back to that one there. So I'll leave that as it is in place there. Now, if I go back to my presentation, the next key feature we've got there is site objects and 3D movements. So up until now, with Powerproject BIM, you could place a site object on the model, but it would be stationary. It would sit wherever you asked it to go. Feedback is people wanted to be able to move that to different places and have it move throughout the build and the simulation. That could be tower cranes, could be delivery trucks, it could be fencing, could be scaffolding, whatever you wanted it to be, or site logistics to move as it goes throughout the project. So again, what we'll do is just to look at that in very brief terms. If I open up, I have this model here, this project here. If I just bring this up. So you can see here, I've got a model. It's got some, but the model itself has got about, I think, it's got a architectural, structural, and M&E model inside there. And if I went to play this, you can see it plays that quite happily as it goes through. And I can add, even if I wanted to, I can add my fly past into it, where I've told it where the camera moves in relation to the different tasks. So when I play it, you can see that it allows it to move around, and that would be exported to a video, and I'd be able to see that as it comes along on there. But I may want to add site objects, which could be a crane, which could be something else. But I'm going to actually, in here, if I go to my model properties, I'm just going to bring up my model properties and go to site objects. In here, I'm going to add a site object. I've actually, this T18 is a lorry that if I click on that, you can see it's actually added to this green lorry up here. And I'm going to say, I don't want it green, I want it to be yellow. So it's added a lorry up there. And I now want to set, first of all, I want to set its position. So where do I want that to appear? So if I choose set position, I get an dialog that allows me to either move it vertically, horizontally, rotate it, tilt it, or snap to surface. So I've snapped to surface. You can see it puts it in there, and it's inverting the color because it's selected at the moment. And so I can say wherever I want it to go, it goes. And you will notice as I do this, if I put it on the side, it will go on the side. Also, we don't want a lorry driving on the side, but also if I have it going up a hill, I can have it going up a hill and so forth. So I can, and all I'm doing here is setting its position before movement. It doesn't have to be the start point of your movement. So I could say it's over here. I might want to park it out of the way when I start my before I start any of my schedules. So if I OK on that. Now, if I look down here, I have actually added some activities in here for my movements. If I go across to here, I'll find where they are. There they are. So the first thing I will do is I'm going to select it and just drag it across onto the first task to actually make it appear. So it's there. And then what I want to do is I want to say, okay, well, let's add the movements of this lorry in. And if I do that, I get to create different actions. So you can create multiple actions that make a path up of a model's movements. So this will allow me, for example, if I say add a new action, I can say the action there. If I had the multiple, if I'd set the name up here as lorry, it would appear inside here. And what I can do here, and again, I'm all working on one screen. I can have multiple screens for this. I can set the start position for that. And I may say, okay, well, that lorry, I want it to start over here. And I may want to rotate it like so. So it's going to be there. And then if I say its end position, I want it to be, let's snap to surface over here. I want it to go to there. If I OK on that, that's one action. And what I can do is I can say, and I want it related to that task there. So I add that particular task, that movement one inside there. Now, Powerproject gives you two options. You can either have every action, every movement it makes for that path linked to a different task, or you can have it on one task and say what percentage of that task does it move between those. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually say, let's add a subsequent action. So in that subsequent action, it's going to be there. And I can set its start position. As it's a subsequent action, it'll move to the finished position of the previous action. And I can say I want that to be rotated, like so. And that's where I want it to start. And then when I go in here, I said it's end position. I can then just say, well, let's snap to position over here. And I may want to rotate it a bit like so. And again, when I do that, by looking at that, I can preview that to see what it does. If I click on that, I can preview that of where that goes. And again, that one there, I'm going to actually assign to the second movement. And if I want to, then I could have another one and another one and so forth. So I can create a whole path of it moving around the site and then repeat, and I could copy and repeat those tasks. So I'm going to close on that, close on that. So now when I do that, and again, for this purpose here, I might just extend these to make it a bit slower so you see it move through. Right, so in there, if I just reschedule those in there. So, and so now if I go to my BIM side and hit play, I've got the movements around there. And as you can see now, I've got a site object moving in, moving around, and driving around in there. Now I'm using the fly past there, but I may want to stop that. Set no fly past inside and have that in there. And then I can actually then run that again now, and it's now this time, it's not going to move, it's just going to be stationary. And you can see it moving around, and I may want to copy those tasks to move it elsewhere. I can spend lots of time how I want it to negotiate and go around that particular site. So it's very quick and easy to do that, and it's just putting some logistics on there to give more realism to and communicate what you're trying to communicate across to people. So if I just go back to our movement, so you can see we can put those inside there, and that side. If I then look at the next thing we can do is we can bring through data from the model. One of the key things that we are finding people are asking once they start using this is that they want to be able to use that key data inside Powerproject. So for example, if I come back to this one here, inside here, I just save that in there. And what I might want to do is I might want to add a, let's just say we go to Powerproject, and again, I'm going to save that, go into user field manager, and at task level, I'm going to add a new string field we called model, let's say object type in there. Close that down. It's going to close everything up and reopen up my model. Let's reopen up the group model in there. So all I've done is I've created a user-defined field inside Powerproject live in front of you, so you can see it happening. And once that's opened, I could actually add that column in. If I go down to user fields and I have my object type in there, and then if I open up the program, and let's just say show to 2 levels. There we go, for 3 levels. So you can see these items in here, and you can see that field is actually blank. But what I can now do is I can go into my model properties. In my model properties, you can see I've got UDF transfer, and I can click on add, and I can say that I want the object type or the IFC type to be transferred into the object type inside there. If I click on update, that's now populated all of those with that particular property. And if I go back to this and open up my properties, you can see in here that if I pin this to this, when I select an object, you've got the IFC type or entity in there, slab and so forth, and that's what's populating. So some do have it, some don't have it, but it could have been any of these properties. I could have brought through the width across into a field that maybe I call width. And every time you update your model, if you put revisions, it'll update those properties. So as you allocate, so you've got a constant use of that, which means you can use that in a spreadsheet to display. You can use it in filters and sorts and groups. You can use it in task data display, you can use it in formulas, and you can even use it in exporting to business intelligence. So you can export that data and share it with other systems and share that information. And it's any of those properties that's in there. So it gives endless opportunities of what you can do here. Okay, so if I come back to my there, so that's what we do here. Now, you've seen, I briefly showed you this before, you've got the select similar option, and this is really useful because, again, if I come back to this model here, and I've already got a project built for it, and actually, the best one is if I show you this one here. So in this one here, I can go to any of these elements, and so I go to the walls there, and I can go down to select similar products by, and it may be IFC entity, so the same entity, and if I do that, it's all the walls in there. Or if I right click on it and I say select similar products by everything by the same material, so all the same materials would have been highlighted in there, and I could drag and drop those to the tasks. If I select if I particularly wanted to get rid of, let's say that one there, if I highlight that and say select similar products by IFC entity, there it selects all of those items, just right click, and I can hide selected. So now I've got rid of the glass and I can see better into there. So it's different ways of doing it and using that to your advantage inside there. And if I just right click and say show all, it brings everything back. And it's a quick way of seeing that information inside there. So now I've got that information in there, I can use that and look at that information. I've also got, and this becomes really useful, is I know I can select an object in here and it will select and it will tell me what task over here it's been assigned to, but it could be assigned to multiple tasks. So I can right click on any element inside the model and I can say in that element, I want to say, I can either go to search and selections, it tells me what searches or selections for the it's a part of, and if I go to there, you can see, and I can see the criteria for that. I can see what products are assigned to that search, and I can also see what tasks are selected that, and I could open just those. So you can interrogate the model and look at the activities that represent that, or interrogate the activities to see what elements are in the model on that side. So it becomes a really powerful side. And again, just to show you here, if I select all of those objects there, once they're all selected, I can say in there that I only want to show any selected tasks. So now that is showing me just that part that I've highlighted. That could particularly be one particular trade items in there. If I just did that, those items there, I could then go again and say show any selected. So that's maybe one particular trade, and I may want to run a simulation just for that. So it becomes a really powerful way to add to that. Again, at any point, just go back to show all items inside there. Now, I'd say one of the other things in here, if I just go back to this, if you've previously seen the BIM side, what we have done inside the latest release, we've enhanced the menu, so we've added some levels into here because we've added new features. We've had feedback as well that people want not to have a very large menu. I mean, it's quite a lot now, but it's grouped together. So rather than everything just in one. So if you were splitting objects, all your splits options are inside the split and merge side in there. So that side. Okay. So you say the context menu, the ribbons and so forth have been made more precise inside that. Other options we have in here is we've always had the ability to export to a video and to a flipbook. A flipbook is just an image every Monday or every Wednesday or every other Wednesday or whichever you want. What we've now done is we've enabled, and that would show data information like you see here, the name of the project, what week it is, what task names are happening, and so forth. But what we've actually added to now is this timeline at the bottom that you can actually put in there. And you can choose the font size, the color, the back color, and so forth of what that looks like in there. So as we go through inside there, so we've added that. We've added timeline simulation to the scope. So if you you see inside the timeline settings in here, you can specify the scope of the comparison model. And if I just briefly show you the comparison model in here, I go to here, what I can do is I can bring through my comparison, which would maybe my baseline. I just do that. There we have now two versions of the model open, and I can simulate this one from the baseline and this one from my live project and see the differences from that quite happily. But now I can also go into the settings and I can do when my comparison, you've always had to simulation scope is the current view of tasks or all or current projects or a filter. I can do the same thing for the comparison. So I could actually run the comparison, could be actually the live project, but I might have it on a particular filter. And when I create a recording from that, the live might show the whole model, and the one at the bottom, the comparison, may only show one particular trade, one particular filter trade, or so forth. It becomes really powerful communicating this to people. So again, so I can do that. If I go to video, so in the video we've given a fast forward and reverse option. Before you could just jump to the end, we've now given that option inside there, and that is the scope main features in there. Now we do have some questions, a couple of questions that people are asking. The BIM module is an add-on. You do need to have Powerproject to have the BIM module. You can't just buy Powerproject BIM module. It's an add-on to Powerproject. If you already have Powerproject, it's just an add-on. Contact Solid Support or your resellers, and they'll be able to assist with that. Someone's asked about how you get hold of the add-on using this. So if I went here on my where I created my schedule, I have this add-ins and I have this schedule from IFC file in here. And if I just inside here, if I just show you, you should already be signed up to our knowledge base, our support portal, which is support.alicosoft.com, and that will allow you to register yourself. And once you've registered yourself, you'll be able to log in. And if I show you once you've logged in, you can see here. And again, this is a really great use for resources and help and assistance, because when you log on here, you can search the knowledge base. You can find anything. I want something out of BIM, and I might want my draw or something like that. How do I print the model? It takes you through and talks about how you do that, how you add it into the library. If I go back there, then you've got your download center, and if I click on download center, this is where you get access to the latest version of Powerproject, the release notes inside there as well. And the release notes are pretty useful. You can click on and see what's actually come out of there. If you want details of what's gone into those, that's available as well. And then you have your add-ons, and if I click on my list of add-ons, and the add-ons are features and functions that are added on additional to Powerproject. These aren't something that are in the product, but you can add them on. And there are things like here, you have the project builder the schedule from IFC. If I click on that, you can download the macro there. Instructions and user guide is all available to you. So you can quite happily download that, and that'll tell you how to install it. Very simple. Have Powerproject closed, run the installer. As long as you've got rights to, it will then appear on your machine. And there, quite happily, inside there. But this is also a good resource to look for, because these are additional functions. So this predecessor successor report, if I click on that, will generate a predecessor successor report from Powerproject in there. That's not part of the standard product. It's a feature that other people wanted. We've added it in that way. Inside there, if I go to this, you've got things like project comparison. So we've got a free tool that's a project comparison, allows you to open up two projects and runs a comparison report on those. Again, you can have the download there for that. If I go here, you've got, if you use Navisworks and you want to have Powerproject project brought into Navisworks as a timeliner, we've got an installer for Navisworks to allow you to do that in there. So you can see there's a whole range of things you can do. Tender event schedules, you've got documentation about your add-ins and how they work, copy and move code libraries and import code from your clipboard. If you've ever wanted to create a whole list of code libraries from a list of items in Excel or Word, you highlight them in Excel and Word and run this once you've installed it, and it'll paste them into a code library automatically for you. So very useful. So that's just very brief, but it's really useful resource. I would recommend if you're not signed up to it, you just need your serial number, company name, sign up, you get access to it. As long as you've got support, you've got access to this. And there's lots of how-tos and what-ifs and so forth. So if you're there on a Friday or on a Sunday evening or Sunday morning playing with Powerproject, you can need a question answered, go to this knowledge base. Majority of the questions that are asked to support are put inside there for you. Okay, so again, if you have any questions, please contact ourselves or Solid Support. We're doing this in partnership with Solid Support in Australia. They've got multiple offices across the country. You will receive an email a couple, 2 or 3 hours after this that will ask you, which will give you a link to the actual webinar itself, and you'll have contact information in there. And if you do have questions following this, please reach out and let. I think I've answered all the questions, unless anyone else has any further questions. So if someone's asked, can a model file be removed from Powerproject? The answer is yes. I mean, once you've got the models, once you've got them open here, if you open one and you don't want it to be in there, if you go into the Library Explorer and you go into, and again, it may be this IFC models, you can remove them from there. So you can just delete them from there, and that will remove them then if you're no longer part of it. You may want to just turn off the models here so they're not being displayed, and then delete them from here. You can also, when you open up a project and you go to open, you do have down here this option that says disable IFC model loading in there. That's one option. I'm just looking at the other options. So someone is asking us the best practice for BIM teams for Revit, ArchiCAD to export to better with Powerproject. So the challenge there is obviously how good the model is, and this is one of the challenges is how good the model is. What we are seeing now is that the planners and other people are being involved more at the early stages. So items are categorized. So when I look at a model inside here, and if I go to that and just open up the other one, properties on it inside there, that these properties are placed in there, better properties are placed in here. But again, one of the things you'll find if you've got models now with the team, get them to create export an IFC, open it in Powerproject BIM, and then run the scheduler exporter generator and see what comes through. What information is in there and what information is missing. We're seeing this as people are seeing this as a real advantage even before they're putting the schedule together, how good it is in there. And again, there's journeys that can be taken to to populate the model information, creating a data structure inside the model that you can go on, and it's understanding what you want from it. We're working with some companies at the moment, they're doing it, and they're doing very simple stages, just maybe phases and location levels and so forth, but they're going to expand upon it as they go from that point. One thing I didn't mention here is once you've created all of this, you can save it inside from Powerproject, and I can do a save as, and I can actually save it as an APV file or a PPV file, which is a Powerproject viewer file. So Powerproject has the free viewer that you can download from our website. It's free to download. It is just a read-only viewer, but if someone saves a file like this, it will create a file that contains the model, the project, the baseline, the site objects, everything it needs, which you can then open up and display that information and run that simulation inside Powerproject viewer It also means that Powerproject Viewer, we have people using it to open up XCR and MSP files, because it will open up those as well without having to have a P6 license and so forth, and you can just view and print from there. Let's see what other questions we've got here. So someone's asking how to navigate inside a model. So basically inside here, I'm actually in a orthogonal mode where I'm looking around the model, but if I go into perspective mode, I can move down here, I can do this, and then I can either use the mouse or the keyboard, and I can then move through that model, and I can use my keyboard and mouse controls and shifts to walk around that model inside there. So it allows you to do all of that, and also the fly-throughs, the fly-past, you can go into perspective mode and you can fly through a building or fly through something as it's being constructed inside there. So does Microsoft have some standard site objects? So we have a few site objects that we ship with it, but not many. The lorry you saw today wasn't one of our standard ones. We have a crane, we have some diggers and so forth. There are lots of models out there for site objects. It's just from copyright wise, we can't supply them to you. If you're a user of SketchUp, you can, in SketchUp Pro, you've got 3D Warehouse, you can download those and export those out. We are trying to gather more ourselves to create a library from people, and hopefully the next release we'll be able to do that. So someone's asking, can we bring a 2D image or something or a picture into as a background? Not at the moment. We are looking at what options we can do for overlays at the moment. There are some softwares out there or some websites out there that will allow you to take a snapshot of a map and create an IFC from it, which some people have done to give you a bit of terrain and surrounding buildings in there, which you can bring in as part of your group model. Yeah. So you have to, someone's asked about, do you have to import the cranes and so forth in? Yes, you do. You have to import, and they're basically requirement for a site object is it's a single element IFC. So it's very basic. So there's no moving parts to it. There's no separate parts to it. It's just one model for the whole element, whole item. And again, that's just export. That's you just choose it. You choose it once, and you can use it multiple times as different site objects. You have to import it once. Okay, I think that's it. I think that's the questions. If there are any further, just let us know. Say give Solid Sport a call if you need any further assistance. And thank you very much for your attendance.